So let's talk about the first stage. Let's talk about the people. So for the people, as I was saying, it's very important to create that common ground. How we did that? So first of all, we need to understand that there are two things: monitoring and observability. When we talk about monitoring is the process how we observe and check the progress of quality of something, okay? And observability, this is another important area. Observability is actually a quality attribute, and observability shows us how well we can understand what is happening within the system from the signals that that system exposes outside it. So this is a very important part, and why I want to highlight that and emphasize that again is because as an architect, when you are designing your application, it's extremely crucial, extremely important to think about the observability on a design stage. If your system has a decent level of observability, then configuring the monitoring for that system will be as easy as walk in a park. And for me, when I'm talking about the decent monitoring solution, for me it works like an infinite mirror. So I start on a high level, and then I'm basically narrowing down, I'm kind of diving deep into that exact area where I may or may not have an issue. So this is how I see that. This is the ideal monitoring, at least for me, at least in my understanding. It's also important to know that when we're talking about monitoring, it can be the white box monitoring, so we can monitor the system internals, and this is mostly suitable for the infrastructure monitoring that we are talking about today, or we can do the black box monitoring when we're basically mimicking the behavior of the end user, and of course it's a bit more suitable for the application monitoring. So today, as I was saying, we will be focusing more about the white box part of it. So another important thing is that, okay, we understand that we will monitor our infrastructure, but then it's also important to know from the people perspective that there are different types of measurements, and it's important to create that terminology so everyone on the team will speak the same language. So when we're talking about types of measurements, I would like to highlight three of them here. So that's the metrics, the events, and the diagnostics. And the idea here is that when we're talking about metrics, that's basically metrics like the exact load of CPU, the exact consumption of RAM, and so on and so forth. When we're talking about diagnostics, it's more about the logs that we store, and somewhere in between we do have our events. If you remember, like a minute ago, I was talking about the infinite mirror, and this is the exact case here. So I always start with my metrics, I work with them on a high level, then I dive deeper to my events, and only when I located the exact area of potential problem, only after that I will basically start looking at my diagnostics. So I was saying that my system can generate, for example, even like a small scale system can generate 1 gig of logs per day. And I don't really like to, go through the whole gigabyte of logs trying to find something really interesting there. I will start with the metrics to identify only a part of all those logs that may be interested for me. So for example, I would like to spend 5 minutes or like 10 minutes working with the metrics to narrow down my attention from 1 gigabyte to 100 megabytes of data, and then I can go to the diagnostics. So this is also an important in terms of way of working. And when we're talking about metrics, it's also important to understand that what can qualify as a metric should be able to answer all those questions that I have here. So for example, for each and every metric, you need to be able to specify what the value of this metric is. Additionally, how it was sampled. Additionally, is it the exact metric or it's already an aggregated value? Also, what is the frequency of this metric. Is it a metric that we were taking once per minute, once per second, and so on and so forth? What time is it from? And also, what does it mean? It may sound really simple, but anyway, what I was also seeing in a lot of different teams, in a lot of different projects, is that for example, when I asked those folks how you configure your monitoring solution, they were saying, oh, we're basically gathering a bunch of metrics. We're gathering the CPU load, the RAM load, and so on and so forth. And I was like, okay, but let's say now you have all that data, how you work with that data. So how you process it. Let's say that I have a graph, I have a chart, and on that chart, for example, one line went up, the other line went down. So what does it mean? And you will be surprised actually how small the percentage of the teams actually who can really explain me, as a matter of fact, those very simple things about their application and about their monitoring solution. So those, as I was saying, may look really simple and straightforward, but please at least try to answer all those questions when you will be thinking about your monitoring solution for your project.